All right. My name's Paul Merka, and I'm the publisher of paulmerka.blogspot.com. Thank you for stopping by today. And before we get to the subject of this latest video, if you've missed any of the previous videos, they're all archived here on this site. And also, don't forget to comment by clicking on the envelope at the end of this post or by leaving a comment on our YouTube page. Today's topic is the annual meeting between the teams from the University of Washington and Washington State University. Friday, the 24th, would have been the 101st meeting between the University of Washington and Washington State men, and the 41st between the women of UW and WSU. This meet is one of the longest running meets in collegiate track and field. In fact, it's the third longest running meet behind only Harvard, Yale, and Cal Stanford. Basically to appreciate this meet, some of the greatest track and field athletes in the world have competed in this meet, and what we'll do is we'll introduce the some of the folks who are on this panel. Obviously, I started this slide a little late, but here's one of the greatest track and field athletes to have competed in this meet, Henry Rono, who held 4 world records in the 3,000, the steeplechase, the 5,000, and the 10,000. So here's our panel. I'm going to go very quickly and introduce you the panel. The first, it is from Washington State. It's Billy Ayears. He was a 1988 Olympic trials competitor in the long jump. Next, we have Alissa Brooks-Johnson. She was a 3-time Pac-12 heptathlon champion and All-American. Then we have Peyton Fredrickson, who's an NCAA qualifier in the high jump. Then it's Lissa Olson. She's number 9 all-time in the high jump. She has a very unique perspective because she coached at both Washington State and UW. And one of the athletes that she coached is also on this panel. That's Francesca Green. She was a Pac-10 long jump champ and an All-American. Then we have Bernard Lagat, who's a 3-time NCAA champion, an 11-time All-American, and a member of the Pac-12 All Century Team. And we have Collier Lawrence, who is a Olympic trials steeplechase qualifier, and she is number 6 on the all-time WSU list in this event. And finally, for representing Washington State is Ian Waltz. He's the school record holder in the discus and a 6-time All-American. The panelists from the University of Washington include Vicki Beskind. She was a Vicki Borsheim. She's a school record holder in the high jump. She was a 2-time All-American, and she's a member of the Husky Hall of Fame. Next, we have Ryan Croson. He was part of 2 4x4 relay teams that's on the UW all-time list. Then we have Mel Lawrence, who's the school record holder in the steeplechase. She's a 3-time All-American, and she's a Husky Hall of Fame member as part of the 2008 National Championship cross-country team. Then we have Rick Noji, who is a school record holder in the high jump. He's a 6-time All-American and Husky Hall of Fame member. And next to Rick is Aretha Thurmond. She was a school record holder in the discus. She's a Husky Hall of Fame member, and she's also a member of the Pac-12 All Century Team. And then finally, we have Chris Williams, who is a 2nd-team All-American in the 60-meter hurdles. Guys, once again, thank you for taking the time to come out and talk to us. First question I'm going to throw out is going to be basically do Kip, Chris, Collier, Mel, and Ian. Odd, since you guys are from outside the state of Washington. What were you guys told about this meet when you were recruited?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that as well. So when I heard that, first of all, I knew one thing about that meet is, we had John Chaplin. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. And so we used to have Chappie every single time tells us about how much he hates the Huskies.
Yeah.
I cannot see anybody. Is that, I don't know if I'm still, okay, sorry. And so, and he used to tell us, hey, you know what, every single time we go there, we have Henry Rono, he went to Huskies, and I told him, hey, you have to go break the world record over there, but don't break too many world records. And then all that stuff. So every single time we, when I joined Washington State, meeting Francesca as an athlete, and then Coach Olson, Ian, and everybody who was at Washington State back then, Coach Sloan, Coach Lee. So everybody was talking about that meet as the biggest one. We could actually go to the meet in Oregon, the dual meet with the Huskies. With the Ducks. But the one that was very important was the rivalry and the toughness of both schools in the event, in all the events in track and field. And so, to me, as a new guy coming from Kenya, all I could hear is we have to go and do our best in order for us to retain that title. And so it was every single time was a battle. And we have so many good memories of back in those competitions.
All right, Ian.
Yeah, being from Post Falls, which is up by Coeur d'Alene, I wasn't too far from.
Yeah.
So I'd always see it in the newspapers, the dual meet, all the greats from Washington State and UW compete against each other. I guess I didn't realize the scope of it until I got to school. And then, with Coach Sloan's antics and it's pretty funny. I'd throw a shot and discus, and then he'd put me in the 100 to get more points. It's kind of weird, but yeah, it was just a great just competition, friendly competition, and we definitely wanted to beat each other. And just the team atmosphere from both sides of the field was awesome. We were there to compete, to do our best, and whoever came out on top, that was just a bonus. Just a great camaraderie, and yeah, just a fun dual meet to have, and just let everything go.
Yeah. Collier?
Kind of a similar thing. Since I was from Nevada, I actually had no idea about it at all. I'd heard about the Cal Stanford meet just because that's pretty close to Reno. But I remember on my visit, Coach Sloan sat me down and told me all about the dual meet. Yeah. But I didn't still realize what a big deal it was until I got to school. And then the week leading up to it and everything, I was like, oh, this is okay. This is a thing. This is a really big deal. So. Yeah. And
Mel?
Yeah, just because Collier is 3 years older than me, I kind of learned about it through her because she was at Washington State.
Yeah.
So I knew that the dual meet was big, and then I ended up going to Washington. So we actually never competed against each other at the dual meet, but I just heard about it from her throughout high school.
Yeah. By the way, just for those of you viewing this, Mel and Collier Lawrence are sisters out of Reno, Nevada, and both, one went to Washington and one went to Washington State. So had to throw the little sibling rivalry in there as well. And then Chris Williams, you're from Pennsylvania. What were you told about this meet?
Yeah, so on my visit, I remember meeting some of the teammates, my future teammates, and I think I asked some of them, it's so cool to travel. You're traveling to all these states. Where do you have the most fun? What are the biggest meets? And the first thing they said was the dual meet for sure. And so at that point, I didn't know too much about Wazoo's reputation, and just learning about the Huskies and our legacy. And I remember by the end of that conversation, I was more confident in being a Husky, knowing that I hated the Cougs, just from how all my host was talking about things, and really fired up. And I think like Collier mentioned, even that didn't do its justice. It's a really big deal with seeing how the fans are reacting, and how the coaches for almost a month beforehand are just really pumping up the team, making sure that we're prepared and ready to beat the Cougs. So yeah, it was. I heard about it before, and every year it was a battle.
Yep. And all right. And so now I guess I'm going to go to the in-state kids. What were you guys? What did you guys see before you came to UW and to WSU? What were your recollections about this meet? I guess I'll start with Aretha.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I remember being recruited by Ken Shannon and Orrin Richburg, and obviously being veteran coaches. They were very keen on explaining, just how the conference was set up in general, from indoor to outdoor, and then the expectation come outdoor season and how big the dual meet was between us and the Cougars. And, like Ian said earlier, be prepared, to pick up a new event, if nothing else, but for that meet only. So very much the bar was set from the early on conversations.
Yeah. And let's see, I guess Francesca. Oops.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely say the same. It was, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
It was, it was the same expectation coming in and coming onto the team and knowing the year prior to me coming in, especially on the girls' side, we weren't too good of a team. And so there was expectation that my freshman year that, hey, you're probably going to do as many events as up to 7. And all of that is to score as many points as you possibly can. And it didn't matter whether something was bugging you or nagging you, you just had to figure out a way, because everything came down to that meet, prior to going into the Pac-12 championships, or Pac-10, championships at the time. And so it was just, it was very, very important. And that was something. Sloan was extremely competitive. And back then I felt like every weekend we had a meet where we were scoring. So it all just kind of led up to the dual meet with Washington. And so I think probably almost every year I was doing 5 or 6 events or 7 just to score as many points as possible. So it's what you did. There wasn't even a question.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw this throw it out to the youngsters. Alissa, what were you told about the meet while you were being recruited?
So I was actually recruited by Rick Sloan too, and it was like his last year. But on the recruitment trip, I don't really remember him saying much about the duel, but he did put a lot of emphasis on like it being very important and beating the Huskies. And I think I also did like 6 events there. But I was just young and I was just ready to get after it. So I was just trying to do my best and kind of please my coach, Rick Sloan. So, but he wanted to win and would do anything to try and do that. So we were just there to do our best.
All right. Vicki, I know you were recruited by Coach Shannon. What did he tell you on your recruiting visit?
Well, actually, I was a walk-on, so I wasn't even recruited. But
obviously, this was always a big rivalry. It was a fun rivalry, and I always enjoyed dual meets. I like that head-to-head competition, and it was friendly competition, but it was definitely, intense. But yeah, so I wasn't really kind of given any any recruiting visits or anything like that. So I didn't really hear about it, until I was there.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, Ryan, you grew up in the Seattle area, so you must have known about this meet.
Yeah, I've been informed about this meet actually by Jordan Bowes through so we had the same high school coach because we both went to Bothell. So he told me that Greg Metcalf, who was both of our head coaches, he likes to get fired up about that meet. So he gave me a little bit of insight going in. And then I remember very vividly my freshman year at the Apple Cup, when that was all over with, I was just talking to the guys. I was like, yo, so like, what's the funnest meet? What's the coolest thing you do? And they talked about Mount Sac and Pac-12s and all that. But a meet that kept coming up was the duel. Because unlike Francesca, we didn't have very many scored meets up until that point. So that was a chance to like really see where we stack up and how we can do. And I remember starting from the end of indoor season to the start of outdoor, because we had our duel late, closer to the Pac-12 meet. Every week we got updated score sheets based on who jumped farther, who ran faster, and coaches, they really projected those numbers out. And if we were going to lose, we knew, or if we were projected to lose, we knew where we needed to step up and what we had to do. So yeah, it was definitely ingrained since before I got there that was an important meet and a big one that you put a star to on your calendar.
Yeah. Peyton.
So I was actually recruited by Coach McGee. So he was part of like the Sloan era, and so basically he told me when he sat down with me or we sat down together in his office while he was recruiting me. He was like, well, there's two meets you got to look forward to every year, and it's Pac-12 championships and it's the dual meet. And those are basically the two meets he told me that like make or break you basically for the season. You're always looking forward to it. You're working up until that point to basically prove yourself on where you stand like in the conference. Cause UW, towards the latter half of my time at WSU were like always top six teams within the Pac-12. So it was more so using the dual meet as like a preparation of Pac-12 and what you're going to see there as well. So it was always about like just running, gunning, and just tough stuff, I guess.
Yeah. And Rick, you there?
Yeah, it was always a special time, especially being recruited by Coach Sloan and Coach Shannon, and really my two choices for schools came down to those two, and it was a tough decision. So I know Sloan, when I committed to Washington, I know every time I saw him during those dual meets or somewhere else, it was always extra special. And that rivalry existed and still exists, but it was always one that we always stepped up for, especially competing likes against Billy Ayears, Stink, and Beaver and those guys. They were a good group of guys, and we always wanted to beat them. But we also had a friendly rivalry, and I always looked forward to it. And I knew that meet, and then we'd go to Pac-10s and then to nationals, and then after that we'd always see the guys from Washington State. So I always looked forward to it. And even when I was being recruited, it was something that Shannon talked about and we strategized about. And it was always a fun meet.
Yeah. All right. So I guess the next question, I'll just throw this out, and anybody can, jump in. Meet week. What was it like? It's like, what was practice like? As far as were there any extra things said? Were there any were there any internal or external motivation that the coaches would have, or your teammates would would have. So go ahead, Lissa. I'll let you chime in on this one. Yep. Lissa, you there? Uh-oh. Did we?
There we go. Okay.
Oh, there you
There
are.
we go.
Yeah.
No, I think that the thing that's so unique about dual meets is track and field can be very segmented sport. And a lot of the times we find ourselves at invitationals where, I guess the focus is to run faster, jump farther, jump higher. And the thing about these dual meets, it brings such a passion and pride for your school. And, there's such a history behind it, obviously. And I know the week, probably speaking more as a coach, since I coached for both universities, you really are so much more in tune. There's so much more strategy involved. So you would have both schools' best list, and you would, with the scoring, right, it keeps the scoring so close. So optimally, we're trying to score the most points. So you become very in tune to the other team's strengths and weaknesses. And that's where, again, I think the team aspect is at its most in dual meets, because you have athletes that will, like Kip and Francesca, amongst many, that will do as many events as they can physically. And then you also have athletes that will just try in long jump and just make the pit, because we know the other team only has one long jumper. And if we can squeeze in and get second and third, we can stay in the hunt. So you really just see the utmost pride and passion and competitiveness to score as many points as possible to win the meet. So there's so much strategy involved, which is really, really fun when, as coaches, we're in these staff meetings, scoring out the meet and realizing, oh no, okay, they only have one, example, shot putter. So let's have our potential athletes try and score as many points as possible, and let's have them just throw one throw just to get points. So you just see a lot of unselfishness, and you just see so much the athletes just come to their best because it means the most, and there's, again, so much pride and passion. But the strategy is really fun, as behind closed doors. A lot of strategy involved in dual meets.
Yeah. It's like, I guess I'm going to ask this to you as a coach, were there times where, you would get pulled by another coach, say, hey, I need your kid?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we always have to be careful not to over compete someone, like Francesca, Kip, Alissa, watching, you guys did so many events at these meets, but you don't want to sacrifice their health, because there's bigger meets coming. So you really have to be careful. But yeah, the multi-event athletes, probably, as you know in this panel, it gets really tricky where to use them without abusing them. And honestly, they would do anything. They would do anything for the team. That's part of the reason that we love them so much. Sometimes we have to hold them back. They'd be willing to do more events than might be healthy for them. Yeah. Now, like Aretha, like dual meet week, you're obviously, the discus is obviously your specialty, but I would assume that you threw at least three of
everything.
Yeah. Did you throw the javelin at all? If it came down to it,
I might have dropped the javelin once or twice at the dual meet. Again, just to score a point. It might have happened. But that's definitely like how it was, I think, and that was one of the things, especially the week going into the meet. Like, if you knew you were going to have to pick up an event that you hadn't done yet all year, you might get a few tips from one of the coaches. But more than that, it definitely was the meet where you definitely cheered really hard for your teammates who were out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
There was that expectation. Those who were supposed to do, first, second, third, okay, that's on paper. But it was the ones who were scrapping for that one more point, you know, those other 2 points that the team would really rally behind. So it'd be really cool, you know, to see everybody lined up on the long jump runway, you know, watching someone else who doesn't long jump, you know, make an attempt. And I mean, it made the meet really special.
Yeah. Now, Collier, didn't you run the 400 hurdles once?
I did my freshman year.
Yeah.
I think that was when the scoring was still only the top 2 from each school would score. And I think UW might have only had one person. Maybe they had 2. But it was myself and another steepler, Kaylee, that they told us like we'd already run the steeple. And they're like, by the way, you guys are running the 400 hurdles. We're like, starting blocks? We're just going to go for it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I assume you were like Aretha. You threw everything, right?
Yeah, I remember in 1998 we actually had a tie.
Yeah.
And so the coaches got together and decided we should run a weight man's relay to see who won the meet. And of course, Washington State won. So, no, just kidding. Anyways, I got thrown in the weight throw a few times. I hated it. But you know what? You try to score points wherever you can, like everybody else said. Definitely not a multi-event guy, as you can tell. But we definitely did our best and scored points where we were. And the old HEP deck people were definitely taking the brunt for the points. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like the night before, what was that like? You know, I know, like, you know, the night before, you know, you guys, I have your usually have your final team meeting. Now, I have this on good word, Rick, that you did a speech to the team that, shall we say, was colorful? Yeah,
That's too
I
far
have
back.
this one on good word.
I cannot remember that far back. I'm sure it was. Yeah, I'm sure I had some choice words, and I probably didn't hold back. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And I probably used a couple F-bombs, definitely. Yeah. And Vicki might remember. She might have been in there, but it's too far back.
Yeah.
You were good at getting everyone pumped up, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the story I heard, I mean, you know, you know, just to give you guys some context, in one of the slides that I had, you know, and some of you guys may have seen this. It's the photo of Billy Hicks and Pablo Franco and Gary Minor in the 220 at the 1975 dual meet, where you know, Pablo Franco is crossing the finish line, and meanwhile Billy Hicks is pointing at Gary Minor, who the year before was the defending champion in the 220. You know, I was actually at that meet. I was a little high school kid sitting up in the end zone at the Husky Stadium, and all through that meet, you know, there was a lot of trash talking, and granted, there might have been 400 people at the meet, but up in the top row of the end zone, you could hear it. So they were, you know, both sprinters were getting after each other, and I don't know what precipitated it, but you know, there was a lot of talking going on all through the meet, and it came to a head in that 220. The reason why I bring this up is because after that meet in 1975, WSU ran off 22 straight wins over the Huskies. So, you know, like, you know, when I went, you know, my 4 years at the UW, and, you know, Rick's 4 years on the men's team, never saw a W against Washington State. So, that's, but nonetheless, that's there are some pretty good rivalries going on. So I guess the next question is, we're just going to go around. What's your favorite memory of competing in this meet? And I guess I'll start with Collier.
I told Mel earlier I had to look some things up because I wasn't entirely sure. I think my senior year when the men and women won, because when I was there, the women won all 4 years.
Yeah.
A lot of that had to do with our field events and sprint people, just because UW is traditionally a very, very strong distance school on the women's side. But my senior year, the men also won, and it was going to be really, really close. And I remember it was at WSU, and the whole meet, it was just we were all on the infield or around the thing, cheering so hard for the men's team in every single event that most of us didn't have voices when it was done. And I remember we all dogpiled onto the high jump pit at the very end of the meet. I think the high jump ended up being the last event just for how it ended up timing out, and that was kind of the clinch for the men to win, and it was the entire team dogpiled on, so it was really cool.
Yeah. Lissa, favorite memory, both as athlete and as a coach.
Myself, so sorry. Okay, as an athlete, this was really a big deal for me because, like Vicki, I was also a walk-on and was always behind Mary Moore, who most the people in their 50s
Yeah.
remember Mary Moore.
My high school role model.
Yes. So I was always, in Mary Moore's shadow, which is totally fine. And thankfully, I redshirted at the time. I wasn't really happy about it, but it paid off because I was always behind Vicki as well. So it was Mary and Vicki for 4 years. And then because I redshirted, I had my 5th year without them in the conference. So at the dual meet, for the first time, I won the high jump. So I was pretty excited. I have a picture I sent you, Paul, of me hugging Jessica, my coach. Yeah. So that was a huge memory because I would have never won had I not redshirted.
Yeah.
And then as a coach, the only thing I was going to say, a lot of people were, as an athlete, you can't ever imagine being a Husky, or as a Husky, you can never imagine being a Cougar.
Yeah.
But the thing I was reflecting upon as being a coach is just relationships that you make with the athletes. So when I was done competing for Washington State and then was coaching for the Huskies, I developed really close relationships with the athletes, and it just boils down to a coach-athlete relationship, and you just want them to do their best, regardless of whether they're a Husky or a Cougar. And then I was a Husky for 2 years and then went back to Washington State to coach. And the same held true, was I wasn't necessarily ever wishing the other team ill will. I just wanted the athletes that I coached to do well because I loved them as my athletes.
All right, Mel.
Memory.
Best memory.
One of them's because of weather. One of them, it was my freshman year, and it was the old stadium, so right on Lake Washington, and it was horrendous, pouring rain, sideways winds, just pretty miserable to be out there. And I actually think we lost that year on the women's side. And then maybe I don't remember what year it was, my senior year maybe. I just remember poor Isaac Gonzalez from WSU. We were in the 3K, and we just sat on her the whole 3K and then just kind of engulfed her and took over. But it was just like a good memory because we had a good relationship with the distance runners on that team also. And so just kind of like being in that moment and like kind of joking around with each other and then just kind of being like, all right, thanks, see ya.
Yeah. All right. William Lee.
What's going on? Hey, what's happening, athletes? First of all, you guys are about the nicest athletes I've ever met in my life. No shit talking yet. Jeez. Man. We actually, I had the good fortune to run indoor at a couple of Idaho Vandal meets, so I knew the competition back in the day when we would compete indoors. So one of the things Chaplin used to tell us is, your ass better not lose. You better win. You better not let a Husky beat you. So that was always on our minds as far as competing. And I recall, I think, Rick, you may remember this. We had a track meet out in Everett at this Everett Stadium. You remember the Everett Stadium? And we would race. We would like literally race. It was the 100 or the 200 or relay, whatever we could do to get some points. And we would laugh coming across the line, racing one another. And that was a good memory. And then I can't remember if it was a dual meet or a meet where Julio Richburg was in the 100, and I think he false started like 3 or 4 times. And I kept going, this dude is not going to beat me. I don't care if he false starts or not. He's not going to beat me. And he false started a couple of times. This was before the no fault rule was in effect. But I remember he's not going to beat me. And it was that mindset because of the tradition that had been, established years before. And it's a matter of the bragging rights. And I'm just being real with you guys, man. You guys were never a threat to us in that 20-plus run that we had. UW was not a threat to us or my squad. So I don't know what you guys were thinking, but you guys were not a threat in any event. We were going to get you regardless. Yeah. I don't care if it's spitting sunflower seeds. We're winning.
Yeah. All right, Peyton.
Oh,
best memories during your time.
So my time there, the Cougs went 1-3 against the Huskies there my 4 years. But the 1 year that we did win, it was probably like the most exciting meet I've been a part of. There was a buzz the entire meet. Every time a race finished, there was always a crowd at the finish line just like cheering on everybody. High jump, we always dominated the Huskies in high jump in my 4 years there. I think there was only like 1 year where a Husky actually scored in the high jump. So that was always fun. But I remember, I think it was 2018 was where it was in Pullman, and the boys and girls really just came together as a team and just ended up winning on both sides. And at the end of the meet, we did our victory lap. We took a team picture on the scoreboard. It was like the first time we had won in like 6 years or so for the guys at least. And I just remember there was just a constant buzz of just like optimism for like from the whole team the whole time. We went into the meet with just like clear heads, clear minds. Just treated it like just a meet where like we all need to like take out our aggression on like just the Huskies, and it all worked out for us in the end. Ended up getting the dub. It was just the first time like probably in my 4 years that I felt like, man, this is what it's like, like a team, and just it was great. It was just awesome. So
all right, now Francesca.
Man, I don't even know where to start. I have so many memories because not only as an athlete, I coached there for 3 years too. So I also have kind of both sides of the coin here. But as an athlete, I was a pretty confident athlete. I don't necessarily want to say arrogant, but there wasn't too many things that I really worried about of losing to anyone. It was really more about raising up my other teammates to make them understand that they weren't to lose as well, because the idea is we got to score as many points as possible. So I remember, I think it was my freshman year, I'm staying in the dorms, and this is in '96, and it was snowing. And I'm almost positive this was the dual meet. If not this, but this is the memory I'm having, is I see Sloan out there shoveling off the track. Lane 1, I'm thinking meet is not going to happen. Like, oh yeah, there's no way. Long jump's supposed to happen, I think at 8 or whatever. It's 6 a.m. I'm up my 2 hours before, and he's out there shoveling off the track. So, it's like, okay, this is real. He's out there putting his work in, getting it ready. So I got to get up and get ready. But there was never a question of whether you were going to give it your all. You just got out there and did it. So memory wise, from as an athlete, it really was just scoring as many points as I could for the team. And that was pretty much an every year thing. And then as a coach, I recall, Sloan, just because of how competitive he was, we got into a big confrontation at the high jump pit because one of my athletes' hamstring was a little dinged up. Her name was Tiffany Giles. And Tiffany, we had already completely won the meet, like by 20, 30 points. So I was like, Coach, let's just sit her. I don't want to run her in the 4x4. We don't need to, we're good. She's good. Let's just save her for conference. And he just was not having it. So we're down at the high jump. High jump's going on. The entire UW team is circled around the high jump pit. And me and him are going back and forth on whether she's going to run or not. I won in the end. So I was going to hold it down for the athlete. But it was just one of those things where that's how intense it was. And that's how, no, I don't care how many points we score. Like, I want to put my foot on their neck. Like, that is just how it is going to be. Yeah. And that's just, he was, that's just how it was. So within that, those are the two main memories that pop out, that, hey, I don't care. We got to run. We're going to run. And I want to make sure they're in, that this is how it is. And I know some people later after that either worked with Sloan or after the fact were like, man, I got the more gentler person, but he was definitely very, very competitive. So it made you competitive. So you just have so many different things that you had to do when you got out there to compete. So those are some of my
Yeah. Chris.
I think the one that sticks in my mind the most was my freshman year. It was host at UW. It was the first year we got the purple track. I'd never seen a purple track or compete on a purple track in my life. And just getting used to the kind of the chaos of a dual meet. I was running between the hurdles and the pole vault and warm-ups and everything. Yeah. But I was, I think it was the 110 meter hurdles with Howard Lau and Shane Moore. For that whole year, we were all making progress, but none of us really felt like we could put a race together, and none of us on the same day. And so kind of getting in the blocks, just you focus on yourself, but hoping just to score as many points as you can. And to be honest, I don't remember the race. Yeah. but I do remember just at the finish line looking back, and with Shane and Howard, and we got 1, 2, 3, swept the Cougs, and just feeling so proud to be a Husky. We put up the W on our home track, and the crowd was going wild, and I think that sticks in my mind often. And as me and Howard and Shane, we talk about it even to this day, and I know we will 10, 20, 30 years from now. It's just a really memorable time and such a proud moment to be a Husky. Yeah.
Rick, what's your favorite memory of the duel?
By far, the best memory I had, and Stink, you got to remember this now. I was a high jumper, 125 pounds, 5'8". Yeah, I was not a sprinter. And that dual meet up in Everett, Coach Shannon came up to me. This is my recollection. Coach Shannon came up to me and said, "Hey, we're short in the 100. You want to run the 100?" I go, "Yes." Jumped in the 100 and won the 100 meters against Wazoo. Known for the sprinters and known for the jumpers. You guys let a high jumper beat you guys.
Yeah.
That is by far.
Phenomenal athlete. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. But I got the 2. I got the deuce.
And I wanted in the deuce, and Shannon told me no.
Yeah.
Those are good times. That was my by far most.
And I was a long jump. I was a long jump pit bully too. I didn't like to. I kicked sand in your face if you're a Husky.
Oh,
you were a little bully.
Yeah, it's like just to give you guys some context, Rick was not only not only held the school record in the high jump at Washington at 7'6½". He's 5'8", like he says, and if you look it up, there is a picture of Rick in a 1988 Sports Illustrated. It's on the inside front cover, running either a 55 or 60 up in Vancouver, with among those in that race that night, Calvin Smith, who once held the world record in the 100, Thomas Jefferson, who was the Olympic bronze medalist in the 200, and then some guy named Ben Johnson.
Little did we know. Well, we got everything wrong.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Kip, what's your best memory of being running in this meet?
Well, you know what? My best memory is the fact that I thought for sure. Well, there was one race that in my life I knew as an athlete I would never even try. And then one time Coach Sloan approached me and I think he told me, "So Kip, if we are so close to the points, do you mind running steeplechase?" And I almost and I look at my coach, Coach Lee, and I'm like, is Coach Lee did he drink something today, or is he on something? Did he smoke something before I know this? I'm not going to run steeplechase. And then, so that tells you how tough this thing was for Coach Sloan. And I think this one was the fact that, he believed that every Kenyan who comes to Washington State could actually run anything, could run steeplechase. And I'm like, no, I'm the exception. I'm not going to run that thing. So Sloan was telling me, so really, if we are so close, and I think we were in UW. I think that was, gosh, you can remind me, it must be in 97. And yes, and so we were there, and I think we were so close to the point, and he told me, do you mind jumping into steeplechase? And then I could look at Coach Lee, and already my coach was like, no, we are not going to lose. No, you're not going to run steeplechase. And not only that, because I really loved the dual meet. So I could run the 1,500, the 5,000, and 10,000 meters. So I could just run all those, all that. But in addition, if I was to run one race, and I told my coach, okay, I guess if it really means we need the points, we have to beat the Huskies, so I'm going to run the steeplechase. So I end up not running steeplechase, man. So that was the only time I would have run that thing, but I did not end up doing that. So, but I remember all those were great memories, especially we had a really strong team. We have Ian, we have Francesca, we had Demetrius Murray, we have Aaron Watkins, we had,
Hillary Mawindi,
Chege, Rasto, all those guys, man. So whenever we were really meeting up with the Huskies, we knew we had the upper end, most of the time, especially in the distance. And so when we double, like all of the long distance guys were to double, and sometimes I could do the triple, then hey, we knew we were set. But then coach wanted me to try steeplechase if we are really tight on points. But I think I never had to run steeplechase, so that means it was good at the end.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, Kip, did you ever practice it?
No, because I had no point, no interest at all. And even an 800-meter Kenyan, Rasto, Kiplagat, Rasto, he is the one who was the 800-meter runner, but he was meant to run steeplechase. I don't know where it was, but he said, I liked it. And I was like, I'm not going to try that thing. I'm like, see, these are chicken legs. They're so small. Jumping over that is going to break them. I'm like, I'm not going to try that, man. So I never tried that. But all other races, I even ran not the Husky meet, but or not the dual meet, but it was one in Oregon. And they put me, Coach Sloan put me in 4x4. Do you remember that, Francesca?
I do.
Yes. Yes. And guess what, by the way? That was my personal best to this day.
Exactly. You ran like 46 seconds.
I know.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
you should have ran 4x4.
Wow.
Yes, but it was because we didn't want to lose the Ducks. So, but the most important one was the dual meet in between the UW and the Washington State Cougars.
Yeah.
Aretha. Driving all the way to Seattle was fun. Snoqualmie Pass, all that stuff. When the weather was bad sometimes, hey, that gives me all the good memories of the Northwest.
Yeah. All right, Aretha. Your favorite memories of this week.
Yeah, I have a couple of really good memories. I think the first trip to Pullman for the dual meet, the bus ride, getting there, the rivalry really becomes real, I think, when you step on the rival's campus. So our first time on the campus, and I remember the coaches wouldn't even let us stay anywhere near the facility. We had to go and stay in Idaho, pretty far away from the campus, and for whatever reasons, I think they were just more worried about partying, but supposedly worried about our safety. But I remember, from right off the bat, it was just like, wow, this is a very, very intense meet when you step into your opponent's arena. But I think ultimately, since we haven't had any trash talk, we maybe didn't do the best overall as a team in our history of the dual meet. But at the end of my senior year collegiately, I can say I never lost to a Cougar.
Yeah. All right. Ian, it's best memories. Oh. Uh-oh. Did we?
All right, we got you.
Yeah, oh my God, we have Olympic champion Stacey Davila in the house. Well, you never know who should.
Go Cougs!
Go Cougs! I love hearing everybody's story. I'm cooking, so I'm just listening, but it's good to see all your faces out there and hearing all these great stories.
Awesome.
Even though I wasn't a Coug or was a Husky guy, I wasn't. No, I was a Bengal.
But by the looks of your hat, you've been converted.
I know.
She has no choice. Great memories for sure. Maybe I'm getting soft in my old age, and I've had all girls, so I don't really have anything mean to say. But definitely the bus trip over, just being as a team going over there, just the camaraderie. I guess my best memories are just building those relationships with Aretha and some other individuals that were on Olympic teams and world championships teams with me. And I think just the whole team camaraderie, everybody yelling at the finish line for that last event, just hanging out together afterwards. I think those are just the longest lasting memories for me is just the relationships and all the good times with the teammates that you had, and just the tight bond you had with everybody. So like I said, just building those relationships with Aretha throughout the years and some different competitors is kind of the long lasting memories for me.
Right. Vicki.
Okay, so this is an easy one for me. I always loved competing against Washington State because I thought Lissa was so nice and fun to be around. And then Mary was my high school high jump idol because Mary Moore was so great in high school, and I looked up to her so much. But my favorite memory was Washington was redoing their track in 1987.
Yep.
And so we had to go to Everett Memorial Stadium, which is my home high school track. And that's where I competed in high school for all my high school meets. And so we had 2 meets there before the Washington State meet that I remember, and both of those went very poorly for me. I remember one was, I think it was against Oregon State, and it was raining, and I think I jumped like 5.8 3/4, and then the next one was a little better, but like 5.10 3/4, not so great either.
Yeah.
And then so finally we were going against Washington State, and my whole family's there, my extended family, and I said, I have got to do something. This is my home track. My whole family's here, and that's where I got the school record. So so that was a very special occasion for me. yeah, so I think it is still standing, but that was just a very special time because it was my home high school track and my whole family was there. And that was my, my best memory.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Alissa, I know you were one of those multi-event specialists that I think I was looking through your TIFRS profile. I think you did 4 or 5 events in the duel.
I think I did 5 in most years, and then I think I did 6 my senior year.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So what was what's your all-time favorite memory from this meet?
I would say my senior year, kind of relating to what Peyton said and how we both won. And there's kind of nothing like it when it comes down to the 4x4 and everyone's just like surrounding the track, and just to like have that support from everybody. Like, it's just like, this is it. Let's give it all you have. And there's nothing like that feeling. But I would also say through that meet, just, I personally gave it everything I had as well. And I knew that I had to step up and win certain events. And I know that adds like a lot of pressure. And I was able to just kind of stay tuned with myself and kind of make that happen for my team. Mm-hmm. And I think that just got me ready for Pac-12s and moving forward as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, everyone's gotten their turn in, but except for one guy, Ryan Croson.
Anchor leg.
Yep. Best memory.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, that's got to be my sophomore year, the dual meet, 4x4 for sure. So that meet was broadcast on King 5, I believe.
No, it was on Pac-12 Network.
Pac-12 Network, my bad. Yeah, so I remember cold, wet, rainy, typical Seattle day. Really, and I remember at the meeting the night before, coaches said, guys, it's going to be close. I can't remember what they said for the girls, but they said, guys, it's going to come down to the wire. And I remember me and the boys, we were warming up, actually in the Dempsey to stay warm, and we're walking out to the track, and we get there, and something changed with the TV schedule, so we had to scramble to put our spikes on and get out there in the blocks. So we did that, like kind of no buildups and no real, I guess, prep other than what we did in the Dempsey. And I remember Greg Metcalf, he took me under his arm. He said, Ryan, I'm going to be straight up with you. They're ahead or we were tied. I couldn't remember. And he said, we win this, we win the meet. Go do your job. I just said, yes, coach. Then we went to the infield. And I had little to no work to do. It was the guys in front of me. They put together 3 great legs. Lucas Strong, Jacopo Spano, and Michael Thomas, really. He came out for redemption that leg because I remember he didn't get the placement that he wanted in the open 4 earlier that day. So he went out for blood and he got it. Handed me the stick in first, went out hard, and then coming around that second corner, that is by far the loudest I've ever heard anything at a track meet in my entire life. And that comes from nationals, Pac-12s, Mount Sac, any meet was quiet compared to what I heard that day on the second turn on that purple track. But yeah, I got the stick, came around the track, crossed first, bursted away from him, and then everyone surrounded me. We were jumping up and down, screaming, and it was definitely the most memorable thing that from that meet that I've ever had.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, oh my God, we got another Husky who just showed up. Ryan Brown. He was a NCAA champion in the 800. Yeah, thanks for showing up, Ryan. we're almost getting to the end. I'm glad you could make it. So, what's your best memory of the duel?
You've truly just running in Husky Stadium since it's not there anymore. The track's not there anymore, at least. Running in Husky Stadium on that brick hard track with nobody there. Truly it was something where at the time it seemed kind of crazy, but I got fond memories of that now. It was like that was a dual meet. That's the only dual meet we did. So, I just loved being in Husky Stadium running the wind tunnel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, as we get towards the end, my one memory, there's actually two memories. One was me as a high school kid, getting free tickets to go watch the dual meet. And that happened to be I brought this up earlier, the infamous Billy Hicks, Pablo Franco, Gary Minor incident in the 220, which is I know that the mural of that race is on the wall in the locker room, and then I know there's a mural on the speaking of murals, there's a picture of you, Aretha, and you, Vicki, in the women's locker room.
Yeah, you sent that to me.
Yeah. It's so that was a defining moment. And then here's a funny one that I had was my senior year. I'm the team manager at the UW, and so we get to the track. I believe this was the first year that of Newberry track, because they used to have the track meets at Martin Stadium, before they dug it out and put more seats in there. But anyway, what's the brick building that's next to the track? And by the way, Wayne Phipps, the current coach at Washington State. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce you, Wayne. Wayne is kind enough to drop by. But Wayne, what is that Bowler Gym? That's that brick building that's right next to the track?
No, that's the field house. That used to be the old WSU indoor track. Sounds like it was a long time ago, but I think probably kind of even as late as the late 90s. Yeah. So anyway, I can't, I don't know where the training room, the old training room was. So anyway, there's, I'm with a couple of the Huskies, and they're getting treatment from our trainer, and then John Chaplin shows up. He walks in, and just to give some context, everybody knew about Chaplin's reputation. So he walks into the training room, looks around, looks at everybody, and he goes, "We're kicking your ass today."
Yep.
Then he walked out, and guys, the guys who are in there are looking at me. They're looking at everybody else like, what the hell just happened? John was definitely one of the characters in this rivalry. I keep thinking to myself, one of these days, if I ever get the time, I would love to write a book about this meet. I think this is something that
that story, Paul, reminds me of something that I and I'll change my favorite memory. It was when we were in Pullman, and I wasn't even involved. I was watching, but it was the 400 hurdles, and Shane was going to race. Shane Charles was going to race. Collier, you might remember the name, the hurdler. God, but he came out. I can't remember the dude's name, but he came out in like a a robe. John Castleman.
Tom Castleman.
Yeah, he came out in a robe, like ready to race. Like he was like, "Yeah, I'm about to win this," and I just got hyped up because he came out in it was like a bathrobe or something. Like
yeah, like a boxer's. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so exciting.
That guy, he came out with with the robe, and I think he did that at NCAA's. Instead of his regular sweats.
He did that a few times. It also had a very large hood, so you couldn't see his face.
Yeah.
That was like a staple for him.
I mean, that's a way to build excitement, though. It got my attention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So as we go ahead and we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, but I'm going to leave it up to our two all-century Pac-12 All Century Team members, Kip and Aretha. Final words.
Ladies first.
All right.
Nice.
Aretha.
I'm muted. Yeah, I was there, man. I was waiting for you to tee it up. But no, in all sincerity, thanks, Paul, for bringing us together. I think it's always great to have these memories. Teeing up on what Ian said earlier, this just shows how close. This is really about, I said earlier, the W as a whole, right? Just the whole state of Washington being represented. And I think we took that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that fraternity, that sorority, and it definitely took us into that next phase of life, whether it was coaching, national teams, whatever. It was always great. I'd always look forward to seeing another Seattle kid, another Cougar, another Husky, just someone else from Washington when you're in another part of the world that gives you a level of comfort that you didn't know existed. So thanks for just bringing us together for even just a few minutes tonight. Let us share memories and good times, because that's really what it's all about. We've all had a great time, I think, to build some great relationships. A lot of us have been able to keep in touch in various aspects of sports and our walks of life. So it's been great seeing everyone tonight. Thank you. And as always, go Dogs.
Yep.
That's right, go Dogs.
Yep. Before you get the last word, I'm going to throw. I invited Wayne as a current member of the coaching staff. Wayne is the program director of the Washington State track program for the last couple of years after Rick Sloan retired. Wayne, you got anything to say to these folks?
I actually got a little bit of sense of the WSU UW duo when I was at Idaho, because we would get invited to whenever WSU would host, they would do a home and home, obviously with UW, but they also did that with University of Oregon. So we would piggyback in on that meet, and you got a little bit of a sense of it, but you do not get a true sense of it until you are fully involved in it. And it's an amazing experience. And I feel like I'll piggyback a couple of things on what Alissa was saying. That was one of my favorite memories, is basically Alissa Brooks-Johnson. I don't want to say single-handedly winning the dual meet for us, but we put a lot on her shoulders, and she was absolutely amazing. And then the other end, one of my, I don't want to call it fondest, but most intense memories Ryan actually alluded to, was that 4x4, where it was the same thing. It came down to the last race, 4x4, whoever won, and it was absolute chaos. Everybody on the infield basically running around everywhere. The triple jump was actually still going on. People were running across the runway. But, it was at that moment where, you actually, obviously disappointment sets in, but you just looked around, and the passion with which those student athletes applied themselves that day, truly just honoring the amazing traditions that there are at both programs. If you go back, just looking back at the record books, and even when I first started coaching in the 90s, and seeing Ian and and the trio of Kenyans that they had with Kip and Rosto and Eric Kamau and Warren Hooker in the sprints, it's amazing. So, I think that's part of the whole experience. And like everybody said, there's just so many memories. One quick one though, after we got swept in the 1500 at our place, and the dogs busted out the broom to represent the sweep, and then 2 years later, the distance guys at WSU made sure that didn't happen again. And so Chandler Teagan took care of business to win the 1500. Just a little side note there, but so many awesome memories in the short period of time that I've had.
Yeah. All right. So now, Kip, you get the last word.
Yes, thank you so much, Paul. One thing that you have done, Paul, is that you've always make sure that you bring the athletes from track and field athletes from Washington State. We read a lot about them. You always trace them. You always pick their results. You report them. And so we appreciate you for doing that. And so tonight is really one of those special occasions as well, because we can actually meet together. Like Aretha was talking about, at the end of the day, it is all of us from Washington. And so I appreciate you doing this today. And one of the things that the experience that we have from competing from UW and Washington State is the fact that we learned something, and we used what we learned over there to be who we are right now. The education that we got was the most important thing. And then some of us were able to continue from the sport that, they really nurtured us, and then they make sure that we got everything that we needed to being a professional athlete like myself, Aretha, and everybody. And so we really think this is really good to do. And I feel like, Paul, this is the beginning of something that I feel like we should actually be doing this one often. Bring more athletes, bring more of them. Before we know it, we'll be having a lot of athletes from Washington State and the state of Washington, and so this is great. So at the end of the day, it is the Washington and the state of Washington, and thank you so much for doing this today. So everybody, good to see you guys. Of course, the young Cougs that, I left there in 2000, and good to see the program, going so well. And Lissa, one thing that, sorry, I know I'm going to take a lot of time, but one of the things that we learned that is not even related to running is some of the things that is even lifestyle. And I remember when I was really new, I used to call myself really green from Kenya, no idea about America. I learned two things in Washington State. And it was you, Lissa. I don't know if you remember this. One, how to wear, the cap really well. Mine was just like flaring this way. And then you just got my cap, and then you just like folded it. And then I'm like, she's ruining my cap because I like it flat. And so one of those things. And then, of course, learning something called pizza was actually from you, telling us, oh, there's this American thing. You should try this called pizza. And then, so those are the things that I've learned from, meeting good friends and coaches like you. And so it is special. And then, of course, Francesca, being here in the good state of Arizona. So go Cougs.
Yeah. All right. Well, once again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking some time from your day to join us on this roundtable. Once again, it's too bad that we don't have a dual meet this year, but come 2021, I am sure that the dual will be back, and I guess Wayne, I guess you guys will have to figure it out where it's gonna be, if you guys are hosting it or if it's gonna be here. But for those of you who are watching this, if you have a chance, if you like what you see tonight, please make sure you click the envelope at the bottom of the post, or leave a comment on our YouTube page. And thank you very much, and we will see you next time. So long, everybody.